Hi, welcome to Aziza by Design. Guess what? It's Bible commentary time. So, as I had shared yesterday, I think it was, I am starting a little pop up series called Bible Commentary, and it's going to be about, as I am reading through the Bible, I will be sharing about the things that I find stand out to me, startle me, and astonish me. So right now I am in the book of 2 Samuel, but the story that I want to share about is from the book of 1 Samuel and about Israel and Saul. Man, the children of Israel were something else. The thing that astonished me is that they wanted to have a king. They didn't want God as their king. So they did not want God as their king or leader. They wanted to have a king because they wanted to be like everybody else, and they wanted to be able to, I guess, like be given orders, and they wanted to be able to be told to go to war, I guess. So they were like begging to have a king. So Samuel went and told God, and my heart goes out to God because you could really see God's heart in these stories of how he's just, I guess, like sad. Sad or disappointed that after all he did for Israel and how he got them out of Egypt and rescued them, that they continue to disobey him, and then they feel bad, and then they beg for forgiveness, and he hears them and ends up helping them or meeting their needs or giving them what they want. So they begged and pleaded, and God gave them what they wanted, but he told Samuel to warn them, like, with having a king, comes a lot of different things. So they were told what is going to come along with having a king, lots of different things that, people's sons having to, work for the king, them having to give certain parts of their crop and livestock and things that they own, and even their daughters, and certain people becoming slaves. So it just came, having a king came with a lot. But they said they were cool with that, and we're like, hey, we're okay with that. So God said okay, and he found a king. So the person that he found and chose to become king was Saul. So Samuel went and found Saul and made him, and he got anointed king. So Saul becomes King Saul, and pretty much like right off the bat, he had trouble obeying and being obedient to God. The first thing he did was he didn't do what Samuel told him to do. Samuel gave him certain instructions, and he didn't follow them, and ended up doing something that Samuel was supposed to do. And that is when God decided to take the kingdom away from Saul. He saw that Saul would not be loyal or obedient to him, and he decided to remove him as king and decided to choose someone else, which ended up becoming King David, which God chose a man after his own heart. So that was really important, that's what God wanted, someone that would, follow him wholeheartedly. So the first thing King Saul did was, I guess, like kind of like out of fear, or I guess like anxiety, like anxiousness, not thinking that Samuel was coming. So he just went in haste and did what Samuel was supposed to do. And Samuel rebuked him for that. The next thing that King Saul did was the Lord gave specific instructions for him to kill out a whole town, everybody, the king, all the men, women, and children, all of the animals, and just kill them all. But did Saul do it? No. He only did it partially. He went and, killed all the people, but he left the king alive, and then He went and took all the plunder and the best of the, animals and livestock for him and his mans. He then went and, I guess he was feeling himself. And then he went and he was going to go into town and make a monument or a memorial for himself. But Samuel came and was Samuel was like, boy, did you do what the Lord told you to do? And he was like, yes, I did. I did. But he didn't, because he didn't do everything. He didn't follow the commands completely. So he said he did, but he really didn't, because he didn't completely follow what the Lord told him to do. So that is when the Lord decided to reject King Saul. And the messed up thing about it is that King Saul's kingdom was supposed to reign forever, and because of his disobedience, it didn't. So King David was picked in his place. But back to what Saul did. Partial obedience is not obedience. And he tried to front like he did do what the Lord told him, which he did part of it, but he didn't do all of what the Lord told him to do. And Samuel rebuked him and told him that. And Samuel explained to him that obedience is better than sacrifice. I'm sure many of you have heard that saying before. This is where it comes from. Obedience is better than sacrifice. So the Lord would rather have your obedience and submission than your sacrifices. And Samuel was telling him that. So rebellion is as sinful as witchcraft, and stubbornness is just as bad as worshiping idols. That's deep, y'all. So because of that, God saw that he could not trust King Saul to do as he wanted him to do. And, King Saul did things out of fear of man and out of fear, angst and haste and, apprehension, because of, being afraid that Samuel wasn't coming in the first act of disobedience. And then with the second one, he was fearful because of, all the men wanted to take the plunder and the good livestock. And instead of using and trusting his authority as king, he, gave into fear of man and allowed the men to take the livestock and the plunder and all the other things. But God rejected him because of that. So that was the main thing that stood out to me. And there's some serious lessons you could learn from that. Obedience and submission is better than sacrifice. Don't do things halfway for the Lord when he is telling you to fully do something, or to carry something all the way out, to do it. And don't do things out of fear of man, or out of haste, or out of, apprehension, or, fear that something is not going to happen because it didn't happen when you expected. Trust God. So whenever you start to feel that way, remember King Saul and, what happened to him when he did not obey the Lord. Just think back to King Saul. So because of that, David became king. And with that, he moved mightily in the Lord. He was a great warrior. He was other things as well. But warrior-wise, King David killed a lot of people. And when he got praised for that, that made King Saul jealous. Jealous to the point and to the, fact that he wanted to kill him. And he was set on killing him. And even when part of what King David did, when he killed Goliath, part of what came along with that was being able to marry King Saul's daughter. And with that, y'all, he even tried to set up King David. Well, he wasn't king yet, but when it was time for him to marry Michal, he was even going to use the ability for David to marry his daughter as a way to kill him. But thankfully, God had King David's back. He had David's back, and but David was able to evade him time and time again, which is good. And God had his back, which is good. The other last thing, which is mad random, but like so crazy. And like, what? Like in First Samuel, during that time of King Saul, there was a man that was going into a town, and so the man was going into the town and he was gouging out everybody's right eye. Like, what is that? That's crazy. And it said, which is not funny, it's sad, but it's just like crazy. Everybody in the town, their right eye was gouged out by this guy. That's like, it's not okay. It's like, what? So that's one of the other things that was like astonished me and like stood out, like, what in the world is that all about? But that is it. Those were my little shares in my Bible commentary. So right now I am in 2 Samuel and reading about King David, and it's going really well. His story is really thrilling and just like full of a lot of like good stuff and action and different nuggets of wisdom. So that's it. So that is it for this edition of my Bible commentary, and I will share some more when I find something that really stands out, startles, or astonishes me. So take care, God bless you, and we'll talk soon. Bye.